Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the Late Night Live show on Radio Ramadan 365. I'm your host, Dr. Saadia Muhammad, consultant child and adolescent psychiatrist, and co-host of the amazing YouTube channel, Gupshup with Dr. Saadia and Dr. Saman. So I welcome once again. I hope Ramadan is going amazing for everyone in Glasgow and everyone across the world. You're listening to Radio Ramadan on FM 87.7 FM and also online at www.rr365.co.uk. So today we are talking about mental health. We are going to cover lots about mental health in general and specifically mental health in Ramadan. So inshallah, I hope this will be a very fruitful discussion, and I have a wonderful guest with me, my dear friend, Dr. Saman Khan. Assalamu alaikum, Saman.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Late Night Live. And Saman is also a consultant child and adolescent psychiatrist and co-host of Gupshup with Dr. Saadia and Dr. Saman. Welcome once again, Saman. And how are you? How's Ramadan going for you?
Thank you for having me today. No, alhamdulillah, it's going well. Can't complain. Alhamdulillah.
Are you starting to feel the little, the Ramadan, what's it called? Ramadan slump. I think it's actually got a name. We're in the middle of Ramadan. MashaAllah, today was the 15th fast. So I believe there is a concept of the Ramadan slump. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't.
No?
But, yeah, and I think it's more tiring when I've been off this week. And I think it's more tiring when you're working, you don't feel it.
Okay, so keeping yourself busy. That's one of the tips. We're going to come on to Ramadan tips, so I hope you've got a lot more for us. But what's been your highlight so far from Ramadan?
I guess it's just the kind of slowing down from everything else and the change in routine and focusing more on kind of connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reading the Quran, spending more time praying, so alhamdulillah, that connection is always feels stronger in Ramadan.
MashaAllah, it does. And Ramadan really does change our lives, doesn't it, for the month, isn't it? We go through this this change in our routine, and it's like a detox, isn't it, as well, from so many things that we would normally doing, and just gives us that time to slow down, as you say, and to and to engage with the things that are really important in life. So inshallah, we will come on more about Ramadan. But I was just thinking that last year, I believe we did a show also about mental health. I think it was specifically last year. So we're 1 year on, and kind of at the other end of the pandemic, although not completely, but in many ways life is kind of similar to what it was before COVID-19 hit us. But tell me about mental health. How have things changed, or have they, in terms of the people's mental health, in terms of what's happening in services across the UK and specifically in Scotland? Give us an update.
So I guess we had like the effects of the post-pandemic pretty much from last year going onwards, and things have not slowed down. Where we're definitely seeing an increase in mental health problems across the board, and with increasing referral rates and just services feeling overwhelmed. And this is not just in mental health, but across the NHS as well. And what I've noticed kind of this year is more and more people are leaving the NHS, which is a shame. But I guess it's the continuous pressure over the last 2 years that is really catching up with people. Not just having kind of mental health problems, but just not being able to manage the workload as well, which is obviously affecting their mental health, and kind of looking for alternative kind of ways of working. So it's definitely had a huge impact, and it continues to have an impact, and it will continue in the future as well. But let's see, let's hope that things do take a turn for the better, and hopefully, inshallah. But I think we just have to wait and see what happens. But we're right in the thick of it, I think.
Yeah, and I guess what you're talking about there is the staff, isn't it? It's the staff, all the healthcare professionals that work in mental health services, that they've really become burnt out because of the nature and the volume of the work, of the patients that are coming through, and that's taking its toll. And of course, I think sometimes people can forget that healthcare professionals are also human. They also have, their own physical and mental health, and it can take a toll. It really can, and it's really sad, as you described. Lots of people are looking for other, other work, and it is a real shame. And I guess it means that also that it adds more pressure on the NHS, and also on the people that are left behind. So it's a huge problem. But tell me, what are the kinds of mental health problems that are being seen? Have they changed any in the nature of what's presenting?
I think we're seeing the same things, but we're just seeing a lot more of it. So we're seeing like anxiety, depression, more eating disorders, more suicidal patients. It's things that we would see before as well, but there's just a lot more of it. I guess it's a reflection of the impact of kind of things around them affecting their mental health. And, it was like in the past, you probably not have maybe one a week or something, but it's like in the moment, it'd be like a couple of patients a week where you have eating disorder, really severe mental illness, so it's very significant impact. And it just seems to continue. There's no slowing down. So it is, I think it's a huge problem at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, isn't it? I mean, eating disorders are one of the mental illnesses that we get most worried about, isn't it? Because it's not just the mental health side of things, but the physical health, and they're very it's a lot of intensive input that's required, and a lot of a lot of risks that are associated with it. So absolutely, that's something that I think has definitely happened in the pandemic. And as you said, they're still coming. They're not reducing, and we're still trying to understand what that's been about, aren't we, in terms of why we had this particular increase in eating disorders specifically. But we know that any kind of stress can impact on a person's mental health, particularly if they have underlying vulnerabilities and other other stresses in their life. So it can be an accumulative effect, can't it? So what's some of the advice that you're giving? Obviously, there's the kind of guidelines, I guess, the evidence-based treatments that we offer in the NHS, and again, that those have been impacted also because of waiting lists and staffing issues. But is there anything that you're doing differently, to help manage? Is there any different kind of advice that you're giving to patients because of the change that we've seen in our workloads, and the severity of presentations coming through?
I think what's changed is probably our threshold has increased, because say before, if you were admitting somebody with a low weight, we'd probably be doing more kind of community-based treatments, because there are no pathways for those patients, because there's no beds, because the beds are full of really even more unwell patients. So there is more impact in a way that we are seeing, kind of managing more in the community. So it is working with really risky patients in the community. So obviously it does have an impact. And, you know, one of the things that you were saying about, you know, staff burnout, and I think that has an impact on that because we are dealing with a lot more riskier patients in the community. The advice is, or, you know, I guess the way we work is we work with parents and families of patients. So it's kind of making sure that they're feeling supported, and we doing as much as we can to provide input in the community, whether it's through our kind of intensive home treatment teams, seeing patients more frequently over the week to make sure that that risk is kind of managed. So that has probably changed, that we are seeing more patients probably more frequently because of the risk that's there. But it, you know, one of the things that we need to kind of, we don't have time to work on, but is really important, is about raising awareness in the community. And I guess this program is part of that, where we are kind of doing more preventative work. So, you know, kind of supporting young people in managing things before they get to the severe end, and kind of more positive coping strategies, and looking after their well-being. I think those are the things that we really need to focus on at the moment to prevent things becoming that kind of much worse.
Absolutely, Summer. And yes, we were going to move on to that, because, and this is something that we're really passionate about, isn't it? It's about you know, prevention, to actually helping to empower people to take care of their mental health and to look after their mental health, so that, you know, they can mitigate against developing these really more severe, you know, or clinical and more severe health problems. So this is something that, you know, I know that you're really actively involved in doing, and we try and do this through our YouTube channel as well. So tell us, what are things that people can do to look after their mental health?
There's lots of things people can do.
Yeah.
So there's things like, obviously the most important thing is looking after yourself. So kind of having a healthy diet, kind of incorporating exercise in your day, kind of being active. This is really important. So, you know, you're looking after your health. That's one of the main, you know, physical health as well, which then obviously impacts on your mental health. So that's really important, that you look after your physical health. And then there's things like you can get involved in different activities, like take up a new hobby, or, you know, do more of what you enjoy. So for example, I enjoy painting. You know, when I'm kind of wanting to de-stress, I like to do that. So things that, you know, help you to relax, but also take your mind away from other things, and something you can focus on and learn a new skill. So some people might take up, I don't know, knitting. A lot of people did that during the pandemic. So yeah, just taking up a new hobby, learning something new. So that you know, will also kind of help look after your mental health. We know that helping other people is really good for our mental health. So this might be either helping people in your in your neighborhood, you know, helping your neighbors, helping people in your community, kind of going and visiting your local mosques. There's lots of activities going on that you can get involved with, doing kind of voluntary work. There are lots of organizations that you can do voluntary work for. So, you know, giving something back, I guess, you know, it can have a really huge kind of impact on how you kind of feel. It does make you feel good, definitely. So that's I think that's really important. So that's I'm talking about
These
the
are all
fact.
evidence-based, and these are all kind of evidence-based
Yeah,
strategies, aren't they, Someone, what you've described there? You know, looking after
yeah,
yourself, you know, this, you know, being involved in in something that's meaningful to you, contributing to society. And I think also connecting with others as well, isn't it? That's another thing that's another evidence-based, intervention, and that makes it quite formal. But really, it's something that we're sort of genetically designed to do, isn't it? Is to connect with others. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that was one of the things that really affected people's mental health in the pandemic, because, you take social connections for granted when you're, in normal life, and then suddenly all those connections were lost. So a lot of people did experience a lot of loneliness, and that had, that kind of impacted on their mental health. So definitely, we're social animals, and we need people, you know, to connect to, and it is one of the most important things, I think, definitely. So making sure that you kind of meet your friends, your family, either give them a call, meet them for a coffee. It doesn't have to be very formal. But yeah, no, definitely kind of make an effort and kind of meet people, talk to them. And it's like a problem shared is a problem halved. So if there are things that are bothering you, speak to somebody about it. And that, sometimes it feels that it might, you don't want to share something which is very private to you. And I'm sure lots of people experience that. I've sometimes experienced that. But when you actually speak to somebody, you do feel better, because you get another perspective. Sometimes when you're kind of thinking about a problem and you're not sharing it, you just kind of get into a negative thinking trap, because you just keep thinking about the same thing. You're not able to see an alternative. But when you talk to somebody and they share their perspective, it really helps you to say, actually, that problem isn't as big as I was thinking. So again, talking from experience, definitely it helps. And as you say, there's evidence-based as well, so it's kind of informal, I guess, cognitive behavior therapy.
I was just going to say that, I always say that friends, you're having a good friend is like having a low-level therapist. Just a normal friend. They don't need to be specifically trained in anything, and sometimes that's best and better even. But absolutely. So, and just as you were speaking there, Summer, I was just thinking that a lot of people are connecting through social media these days as well. I think everybody has a social media, sort of presence, or uses it as a form of keeping in touch or communicating with others. Is it the same as like in-person contact, or are there any other benefits, additional benefits, or I don't know, what's your view on that?
I think it's they're positives and negatives. So positives are definitely like some people who you've got probably not connecting with for a long time. It's easier to connect with people over kind of social media, because you're just sending a message. So sometimes it's easier to send a message than to talk to somebody. However, it doesn't replace physical kind of connection, definitely not. So, for example, I can be chatting to people on social media, on for example, WhatsApp. But when somebody gives you a phone call and you talk to them, that's definitely better. And then obviously even better is if you meet somebody over a cup of coffee, So that, obviously during the pandemic, there was social media, there was video, I don't know, Zoom kind of meetings, family reunions and things, but it doesn't replace kind of face-to-face contact, definitely. So it is in some ways it's helpful. It helps to connect with people, like, for example, if you're in different parts of the world. But it doesn't replace the physical contact, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, Simon. I think there were some people who maybe, we know that in the pandemic, many people were struggling, and were impacted negatively in terms of their mental health. But some people actually did thrive, in some ways. And you and I, we both work with a lot of young people with autism spectrum disorder. And I think that was something, and some of those young people, I think what we saw was actually, because social interaction and social situations can be very stressful for them, when they didn't have to engage in that, that was actually quite a relief for them. And those kids actually, some of them actually did continue to engage with people online. And I think they do sometimes find it easier, don't they, or often they find that easier. And so I think for some people, maybe it does have additional benefits. But, we are, for most people, I think you're absolutely right that it's, that face-to-face contact. And we felt that as well in our practice, didn't we? Because we were, for some, we obviously had to change how we were, practicing. So we weren't able to see all our patients face-to-face, and we're doing video calls and some telephone calls as well. And I think, I totally agree that nothing replaces face-to-face contact, but I think there can be some benefits as well. Some people find it easier to maybe engage and attend appointments when they're not in person, they don't have to sit in front of you. They can just keep their, maybe even put their camera off while they're speaking to you. So I think there's definitely, benefits to social media, and we should utilize it to our advantage. But I was going to ask you another question, but I think we're coming up to an ad break. So we will just take a short ad break and inshallah be right back. So you're listening to Radio Ramadan Late Night Live, and we will be back just after this short ad break. Don't go anywhere. Ya Rasul, salam alayka.
Radio Ramadan 365, sound for the soul.
Big Day Events, Scotland's biggest Asian caterers and event planners, specialists in full wedding packages with access to numerous venues from countryside retreats to 5-star hotels. From 100 to 1,000 guests, we can cater for your event without compromising in quality or service. Ensuring a successful and carefree event for you, call Big Day Events on 07 855 861 802 or visit us on bigdayservices.com.
Everybody make dua. ये बच्चे भी स्कूल जा सकते हैं। गजाली एजुकेशन ट्रस्ट अपने 700 से ज्यादा स्कूलों में 1 लाख से ज्यादा बच्चों का मुस्तकबिल संवारने में कोशां है। आप चाहें तो आज के चिराग कल का सूरज बन सकते हैं, दुनिया रोशन कर सकते हैं।
इस रमजान अपने ज़कात व अतियात गजाली एजुकेशन ट्रस्ट को दीजिए।
ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਜਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਜਾਣਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਨੂੰ ਟਾਈਪ 2 ਡਾਇਬੀਟੀਜ਼ ਦੀ ਤਸ਼ਖੀਸ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਟਾਈਪ 2 ਸ਼ੂਗਰ ਦੇ ਖਤਰੇ ਤੋਂ ਦੋਚਾਰ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਟੀਮ NHS ਗ੍ਰੇਟਰ ਗਲਾਸਗੋ ਐਂਡ ਕਲਾਈਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮਜ਼ੀਦ ਸਿੱਖਣ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣੀ ਸ਼ੂਗਰ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਕਰਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਦਦ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ। ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮੁxtਲਿਫ ਖਿਦਮਾਤ ਫਰਾਹਮ ਕਰਨੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਪੈਣ ਤੇ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟਰ ਦੀ ਸਹੂਲਤ ਵੀ ਦੇ ਸਕਨੇ ਆ। ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਉਰਦੂ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਤੇ ਅਰਬੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਵਸਾਇਲ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਨੇ। ਮਜ਼ੀਦ ਜਾਣਨ ਲਈ ਸਾਡੀ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ www.nhsggc.scot/T2 diabetes hub ਜਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ 01415318901।
Radio Ramadan 365, sound for the soul.
يا رسول سلام عليك يا حبيب سلام عليك صلوات الله عليك يا نبي سلام
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Radio Ramadan Late Night Live. I am Dr. Sadia Muhammad, and with me is my lovely friend, Dr. Salman Khan. We are talking mental health, and welcome back once again to everybody in Glasgow. You can listen to Radio Ramadan on 87.7 FM and internationally anywhere in the world at www.rr365.co.uk. So, Salman, just before the break, we were talking about quite a few things, but I had a question for you before we went to the ad break, which was, I want to get a little bit personal with you. So I want to ask you, we've been talking coping strategies, how we look after our mental health. And this is, we know, is different for everybody, isn't it? Everybody has slightly different ways of looking after themselves, of things that work for them, how they cope with stress. How does someone can manage her mental health?
Okay. I guess one of the things that I do like doing normally, maybe not so much in Ramadan, is watching Pakistani dramas. Definitely a de-stress for me. So that's something I do enjoy. And kind of going for walks, quite enjoy my walks. Especially if there's a lot on my mind, I just tend to kind of go out for a walk and to clear my head. It really helps. And
Do you go alone?
I do go alone.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's nice.
What else do? I do painting. I haven't done one in a while because I've just been so busy. But that was something I had started during the pandemic. And I like spending time with my children. So my oldest son's at uni, so I usually just give him a call. And the younger one is at home, and we just have a chat, or we'll watch a movie together. So definitely, that's something I do enjoy. If we watch as a family, we'll watch something together as well. That's quite nice. So yeah, I think those are the kind of things that I would normally do, kind of to manage things. Things that I enjoy, definitely.
Yeah, that's really nice. I mean, you've got a whole range of different things, isn't it? Different tools that you can use, and it is really important to have, a few things that you can use, and to try out new things that maybe you haven't done before. Like you said, you sort of reignited your interest in painting during the pandemic, and it's so important to to think of things that maybe we were once interested in, but then life just kind of caught up with us and we got really busy. But to find these, to find meaningful and relaxing activities that can really help, to help us to look after ourselves and to manage stress, because there's no way of avoiding stress. That's just part of life. Like we say to all our our patients, our young people when they come into the clinic, because it's almost, and I don't know if you feel this, someone, but there's almost like this kind of sense that you shouldn't, life should be about being happy all the time, or it should be about, you shouldn't feel any kind of worry or any kind of negative feeling. So we do a lot of sort of normalizing, don't we, with our patients, that this is part of life. This is, all these emotions are part of life. We can't avoid them. We need to learn to manage them. There are times when things can get too difficult, and that's when they need to maybe do more and seek help if that's needed. But these things are all part of life. Do you have things that you do? Are these the same things that you do if you're like stressed or going through like a tough time, or do you have additional things that you might do?
I probably would do more of something. Like I would probably do more walks if I'm stressed. Definitely, I think that's kind of linked to that. I would definitely do more exercise when I'm stressed. It really helps me clear my head.
Yeah, well, that's brilliant, isn't it? Because that's one of these sort of eternal and kind of universal pieces of advice that I think all healthcare professionals give, because it's so important for your, not just your mental health, but your physical health as well. And again, all these things are related. Your physical health can impact on your mental health, and your mental health can also impact on your physical health. So thank you so much, Suman, for sharing those with us. So moving on, I was hoping we could have a bit of a chat about Ramadan and mental health. Because mashallah, we are in Ramadan, we're halfway through Ramadan. And have you got any specific kind of advice or insights, or just tips of how people can manage their mental health in Ramadan? What and again, you can share anything that you do as well.
I think the thing that I find hardest in Ramadan is the lack of sleep.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I do, and I do this regularly, is after I come home from work, I do have a nap. And I think that's really important to give me strength enough then, to go in the kitchen and start preparing things, because without that I would be extremely tired and in a very bad mood. So that nap is really important for me. And I think everyone should take a bit of, because you don't get enough sleep during the night. So it definitely is really important. And sleep is very important for our mental health. I think we underestimate it, but it's so important that we get enough sleep. Because then it just starts catching up with you and makes you irritable, and it can be physically not very good for you either. So that's my biggest tip, is make sure you have a nap. But yeah, no, alhamdulillah, the other things is I think we all kind of try to make as much time as possible to do things that help you to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But obviously recognizing that we're all at different stages in our life, and like a young mom, for example, may not have enough time because they're busy. So even that, I think, is important to realize that is also a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you're doing something for the sake of Allah, isn't it? So just because you're not having enough time to pray or read the Quran doesn't mean that you're not connecting with Allah. So I think it's important that every single activity that we do during this time, we recognize that it's for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and remind ourselves. And that helps us to feel that connection and that kind of peace that we're kind of all, I'm sure, looking for during this month. So don't be hard on ourselves during, for those who are not able to do as much.
That's such an important point, Suman, and thank you for bringing it up. And it kind of reminds me of something that I read, I think, a few years ago, and I think it was possibly aimed at young moms, or busy moms, that maybe we're feeling that they don't have, they can't give as much time to, what we would think of as, very specific acts of ibadah, like prayer or reading Quran or doing dhikr. And the Imam, I think, who had written this, had said that, maybe it's not about doing more, than what you're doing, but actually about magnifying your intention, because every action is by intention. We know from the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's so important to, when you do something, to have the right intention. And this is something I've spoken to friends about, because I think, how often are we conscious of our intention? Like, I think if somebody was to ask you why you're doing a certain act, it might make you think, and you think, well, I'm doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But sometimes I think we're just in such a sort of a robotic mode. We just kind of continue doing things and don't always sort of take a moment to remind ourselves. So yeah, this is just something that I think about. Is there an unconscious intention? Does that count, having an unconscious intention? Because if somebody asked you, you'd be able to answer that question, isn't it? You'd be able to answer it. But absolutely, it just reminded me of what the Imam said. So magnify your intention in this month, inshallah, and that in itself, will give you a greater connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and which is what Ramadan is all about, isn't it? Subhanallah. So actually, that might bring us on to our next segment, in which I wanted to talk about our Gupshup channel, our YouTube channel, and because we have been doing a Ramadan reflection series, haven't we?
Yes, alhamdulillah, I'm doing
This
that.
year. Tell us about that. Tell us about the channel, and tell us about the Ramadan reflections.
So Gupshup, we've been doing now for 2 years now?
Mashallah.
MashaAllah, gosh, that's didn't realize how long it's been, but alhamdulillah, and it's going strong. Obviously, there were periods when we weren't as active because life kind of takes over, but we were making a conscious effort to kind of do something as soon as we could. But it's been a journey. It's about how, and I guess both of us really enjoy our Pakistani dramas. And there were things that we would talk about and discuss, like, what did you think of that? And it was like, actually, we can talk about it in public, because our Pakistani dramas have really moved forward in terms of the themes that they show, a lot of psychological issues. And I guess it's a reflection of our current society, where there are lots of mental health problems at the moment. And so it has been quite easy to tease out different aspects of psychological issues that these dramas show and discuss it. And Sadia, I know you've said this before as well, is that the audience may not be aware that certain issues have, a psychological basis. So it's kind of interesting to connect that. And the feedback we've had is about, like, some of them, people have said to us, oh, we didn't realize that this was wrong with this person, or, this wasn't a psychological issue. So definitely it is about awareness raising, recognizing a mental illness, the signs and symptoms, but also about kind of, thinking about management, how to help yourself if you find yourself in that situation, or if you find somebody else in that situation. So it's definitely been a journey, and it's I think, alhamdulillah, we've been learning from our feedback, and we've been incorporating that, and inshallah, hopefully people are benefiting from it.
Yes, absolutely. So if you haven't checked it out, I mean, where have you been for the last 2 years? Check out our channel. It's Gupshup with Dr. Sadia and Dr. Suman on YouTube. And we've got lots of videos there, lots of dramas that we've spoken about, and other stuff as well that we've done over the years. So Suman, just keeping with the theme of Ramadan then, so we decided to do a Ramadan reflection series. So tell us a bit about that.
So this is something that we kind of started with our Gupshup Bites, isn't it? So just taking certain themes. So during Ramadan reflections, we're taking themes that relate to Ramadan. So we've already done 3 parts, alhamdulillah. So it's things that we would think about in Ramadan, like connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, connecting to the Quran. And I think part 3 was self-reflection, which are all things that we would normally do during Ramadan, and how, or dramas that have shown that that kind of those themes. So again, it's been an interesting journey looking at different dramas and finding those themes, because there are, and our Pakistani dramas have shown them. So it's but again, it's to bring it to the forefront and connecting it with those themes, and relating it to Ramadan, alhamdulillah.
Because we know that people that have a belief in God, or a divine being, that have a religious affiliation, or even just a spiritual affiliation, that is really protective for, you know, for mental health. And, you know, for lots of reasons, you know, but, you know, for example, it can just help shape your perspective on life and on what's happening to you. Because we know our thoughts and our feelings and our behavior are linked. They all impact on each other. So how you think will affect how you feel, will affect how you know, what you do. So if you're in a difficulty, but you know, you remember that Allah, you know, Allah tests those he loves, you know, or, you know, that you think that this is something that Allah has given to me to, you know, for a divine wisdom, you know, it's, you know, it's something that's an object. So, you know, and we know that even, you know, doing sort of ritual worship that has its own kind of, you know, effects in terms of stress management, and, you know, there's a lot of research about this. So, you know, so what we've tried to do, I guess, is connect, isn't it, the mental health and the spiritual, you know, practices or religious, you know, practices in Ramadan for our audience. And we've got quite a few other themes coming up, so please please keep watching us, and these episodes are really quite short and sweet, so inshallah, please do check them out. So someone, just before we finish off this segment, what's the one drama, if you had to choose one? It's a very difficult question, but if you had to choose one, if somebody hadn't seen any Pakistani dramas in their life and you had to recommend one drama for them to watch, what would it be?
That's a hard one.
Two then, you've got two.
I think Parizad definitely is one of them. I think it showed some really important themes, and yeah, it was just a beautiful character, you know, and just his personality, the way he was very giving, you know, he didn't expect anything back from anybody. So that was the beauty of the drama, was his personality and his character, and then the development of his personality and character through that drama. So definitely that's probably my number one. What other one?
And that's quite a recent one. That was just last year, wasn't it? Oh, you're muted.
It is quite a recent one. And thinking back, like in the old dramas, really, like if you think about my childhood dramas, there was one drama I really enjoyed, was called Tapish, which kind of left a kind of a strong kind of mark on me as well. And it was a very political drama, but yeah, no, it was really good.
So how did it impact on you?
It was just about young people who wanted to change the world, you know. They wanted to bring social justice, and I was quite kind of a revolutionary young person, you know, wanted to change the world, idealist.
What do you mean you were?
I'm more cynical now, but yeah, no, you know, it was definitely, you know, in that way, you know, that yes, we can all change the world, and we all have to do our bit, and but yeah, no, kind of more wanting a social change and kind of impacting to improve the lives of the common man.
You know, I think that's the beauty, isn't it, of drama, of art, of literature, you know, that a good, you know, a powerful, you know, drama, you know, a meaningful book can really change your life, you know. It can really, even just learning one, you know, you learn one insight, one lesson, and that can stay with you throughout your life and really, you know, impact in a positive and progressive way. So thank you for sharing that, Saman. So the last part of today, I actually wanted to talk about parenting, just because it's a hot topic, always is, and you are a child and adolescent psychiatrist, and mashallah, you're the mother of two lovely and successful boys, mashallah. So I'm sure you get asked this question all the time. What is the secret to, successful parenting?
There's no one right way to do it. I'll tell you that. But I guess it's about kind of, it's really important that we don't enforce what our kind of ideals are on them. I think that's important. And not put our expectations on them. You need to see, because every child is different. I've got 2 boys and they're both very different from each other. Accepting that every child is different and every child's needs will be different. So just because you parented one child in one way and they turned out okay, doesn't mean that the other child being parented in the same way will turn out okay either, because they might have different needs. So I guess it's being sensitive to that and recognizing that from an early stage is really important. I think it's personally, for my children, it was really important. And the children that we see, it's really important. That we kind of share that knowledge with them, that actually maybe it's the way that they're parenting their child, they're not recognizing what their needs are. So that's definitely really important. It's about being sensitive to their needs. It's being sensitive to the different environmental factors that are at the moment, the pressures children and young people are under. It's being aware, so making sure that you are up to date and know exactly what your children are being taught in school, what's around, because all these kind of pressures will impact on your child's life. So don't be unaware. Don't, make sure that you are aware of things that are happening, so that you can have an informed talk with your child. There are lots of issues that are around. I've always, from a young age with my boys, I would discuss it with them. And again, it might not be right for everybody, but it worked well for me. So that they're aware of what things they will see, what they might be exposed to. I spoke to my children about drugs when they were still in primary school, so that they'd be aware of the dangers of it. So I guess it's just being aware of what's happening around you, what your children are learning at school, so that you're on top, you're ahead, one step ahead of your children. That's all. That's the way I kind of see it. And if your child is having issues or having difficulties, it's about kind of making sure that they are being supported. So being an advocate for your child, whether they're in school or whatever kind of situation they're in. So I think that's really important, because sometimes it doesn't get recognized in schools when they're busy, like 30 children in one class. Sometimes it doesn't get recognized. So it's, as I say, the most important thing, I think the most important kind of message that I can give is to be aware. I think that's the most important thing. And then you manage things as they come and go, because as you were saying, there will be stressors. It's impossible, whether they're exams, whether there's bullying, whether there's there will be stresses, and it's about how you manage it, which is going to be important.
And I think there's something else, someone which maybe it's so natural that maybe you haven't mentioned it, but I think you've got such a lovely relationship with your boys. You have a very close and open relationship with your boys, and I think you've always had that, haven't you? And you've really developed that, and I think that is such, so important, having that foundation. That your children feel that they can come and tell you anything, because you will be ready to listen to them and to accept, and not shut them down. So they can throw anything at you, and you will be able to, take that and work with it.
Yeah, no, that's really important, Sadia, because it's not about, because there'll be things that they'll make mistakes, but it's about how you manage that. So it's about that, you don't react in a negative way, because if you react in a negative way, they won't come back to you. They won't, there might be a small thing first, but then when there's a big thing, they won't come to you. So it's about kind of being sensitive to when you're listening to what they've done. So, you know, put consequences in if they've done something wrong, but don't react in a negative way, because that's going to put them off. You won't have an open relationship with them. So for me, I think that was the thing. One of the things that I did invest in is to have, you know, that even if they did something wrong, it's about listening to them, not reacting, but saying, you know, if they've done something wrong, saying to them that they've done something wrong, and to rectify it without, you know, shouting at them or being angry at them or giving them severe punishments, you know.
And I always say to my kids, you know, if you've done something wrong, just tell me the truth. I'm not going to be angry, because you know, I might be annoyed at other things, but if you tell me the truth when it really matters, I'm not going to be angry, you know. And that is it's so important to, you know, for your children to know that they can tell you anything and you will take it, you know, and because they have to, isn't it? If they're not, they have to. Where else are they going to go? If or you know, if they do take it elsewhere, they're not going to get the same response, you know, if they take it to their friends, or even if they take it to their teachers, you know. No one's going to look out for them really like their parents are. So it's so important to have that in place. And just out of curiosity, someone I'm going to ask you all these questions. See, with your kids, with the boys, did they ever like give you feedback on your parenting? Or did you ever ask for feedback? You know,
I think they do give me feedback now. Mashallah, both of them are very grateful, actually. And they do recognize that they are close to me. But they say to me why they're close to me is because of all the things that, you know, we did when they were younger, which allowed them to open up to me more. Alhamdulillah. Actually, Rahil was just telling me yesterday. So
oh, that's so nice. That's so sweet.
yeah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah. Do you know my daughter, what she does is every day when she comes home from school, she has to tell me about her whole day. Like from the morning to the evening, every day she has to go through the whole day and tell me exactly what happens. And like if we don't manage to do it one day, she'd be like, "Mommy, you know, we've got 2 days now to talk about." But you know, yeah, mashallah, you know, it's so important though. And you know, and she's at that stage, we know, when they're trying to talk about like, you know, boys and girls liking each other and stuff. And you know, I can just imagine, like, if I had said that when I came home to my mom, you know, at that age, she would have been totally panicking, you know, and not sure what to kind of to do. And I don't know what she would have done. But I think it is just so, you know, it's just so important to listen to everything and to be open. I think that is the fundamental basis, isn't it? The fundamental key, I think, to parenting. Yeah.
And I think sadly girls do talk about their day, but boys don't.
Mm-hmm.
Boys generally used to, I mean, when they were younger, if I used to ask them how was their day, they'd be like, nothing happened, it was fine, or something, you know. And you spend the whole day still and nothing happened. You know? But what I started to do was I started talking about my day.
Okay.
And that opened up the conversation. So when they started becoming interested in what I was doing, you know, I would, even if it was as mundane as anything, you know, I would still talk to them about it. And then they started telling me, oh yeah, so said this, and this teacher did this, and that was funny, you know. So it's about how, you know, if you keep asking them, they're really exhausted by the end of the day. You know, they don't, sometimes boys are like, their girls are maybe different, but they don't really want to talk.
Yeah.
You know, but when you start talking, they will then start opening up.
But you role modeled that for them, isn't it? And then that kind of, as you said, that opened up the path and made it okay as well for them to talk, isn't it? So that was great. That's fantastic. Right, in the last few minutes, any other parenting tips? Any do nots? You can talk about do nots, not just do's.
Do nots is don't shut up your child. if they're trying to talk to you, because I've noticed that some, some children will come up to the parents and they want to, and the parents will ignore them or not listen to them. So it's about like, even if you're busy and you can't listen to them, you give them that 1 second at least to say, I'm busy right now, but I will want to listen to what you have to say because it obviously seems important. So it's about kind of keeping those channels open, because at one point your child will stop coming to you and wanting to tell you whatever they want to say. So it's definitely, open communication. That's the really important.
There's that quote, isn't it, that if you listen to your child when they're 5, then they will listen to you when they're 15. I mean, you want them to listen to you when they're 5, but you really want them to listen to you when they're 15, don't you? So I might have got the ages not right, but you get the message. So thank you so much, Saman. We covered a lot, mashallah, in the hour, and I got to ask you lots of questions about yourself, because I'm sure people are very interested to hear about about how you do things and your experience. So thank you so much for being generous with your time and your answers. And I hope the rest of Ramadan goes very well for yourself and for our listeners as well. And and I'll need to catch up with you about the Ramadan slump, because there is a concept of the Ramadan slump. And that's that could, I don't know if that could be another session on its own. But anyway, thank you everyone for listening, and inshallah, take care. You've been listening to Radio Ramadan Late Night Live, 87.7 FM, and inshallah, stay tuned and keep listening to Radio Ramadan throughout the blessed month, and take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ya Rasul, salam alayka.